Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's third video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. So today's third video, that's going to take us to around the 14th of November. So we're heading up towards the middle part of the month with week to 10 day video update time frame now. And we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles, which run to around a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations and also CFSV2 for the next month. So it's going to be an action-packed video. Hope you find it interesting and informative. The first video up today was just a final update looking at Bonfire Night tomorrow, and also we released a second update, a video update, which is the November forecast. So have a look at that, see what we're forecasting for November. Tonight we're going to have the second Christmas update, so a very busy old day at Gasworth is today. Right, I thought we'd just start with this. We featured it at the beginning of the November forecast, but I thought we'd make sure that everybody had an opportunity to see this. So the climate averages have been updated at the UK Met Office now for October. So this is how October's temperature anomaly came out, set against 81 to 2010. You see that for many parts of the country it was actually a colder than average month. We see that as much as Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales down into the Midlands, the temperature anomaly was below average for this October. Down in the south, it's actually closer to average there, but the majority of the country had a cooler than average month. Precipitation-wise, a real north-south split actually, and interestingly, so we see Scotland, Northern Ireland, the far north England averaged a little bit drier than average, and the rest of England and Wales coming out wetter than average, particularly across eastern parts of England, so parts of Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, down into the north and the East Midlands, also some parts of East Anglia, up to 200% of their average rainfall there. Exceptionally wet in few parts of eastern England, generally a wetter than average month for England and Wales too. So there the stats for October, cool and overall wet month for many of us, although it was a little bit drier up in the north. This is the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. So the black line shows where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything in its own terms, it just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. So when the Arctic Oscillation is positive, you're going to have low pressure over the Arctic and over the North Pole. But when the Arctic Oscillation is negative, you'll have high pressure, have blocking up over the Arctic and sometimes over North Pole, sometimes over Greenland even. And blocking, of course, is the route pushing cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitudes. At the moment, the black line shows that we are just slightly on the negative side of neutral, but look what the GFS ensembles are doing up to the middle of November. They're gradually turning more negative in the next few days, and then a lot of them are doing an absolute plunge as we move towards the middle part of November. A crash, a collapse of the Arctic Oscillation Index taking place there, which tells us that as we go further on through November, the GFS ensembles are seeing the chance of increasing amounts of northern blocking and potentially extensive northern blocking as well. So we could be in for some real high pressure getting going within the northern latitudes. And if that does get going, because it depends where the high pressure sits as to who's going to get the cold, because on one side of the block you will have cold air being forced out, but you'll always have a mild side of the block as well. So that's just the luck of the draw, who happens to be on the cold side of that blocking area of high pressure and who is on the mild side of the blocking high pressure, but definite indications there that the GFS ensembles really are seeing a very dramatic plunge in the Arctic Oscillation as we're moving up towards the middle part of November. This is the North Atlantic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. So again, the black line shows where we've been with the NAO, the red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. As with the Arctic Oscillation, this is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything in its own terms, it just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. When the NAO is negative, you're going to have higher pressure towards Iceland and lower pressure towards the Azores. But when the North Atlantic Oscillation is positive, you will have low pressure around Iceland and high pressure through the Azores, and you will tend to strengthen the zone of westerlies. A positive NAO at this time of year and through the winter is the default setup. At the moment, we're around neutral. We're going to go weekly positive in the next sort of week or so. And then after that, a bit of a split is appearing actually as we're moving up towards the middle part of November. A little bit of a split is appearing there for around this period onwards. So we do have some GFS ensemble members that are going negative again with the NAO. Of course, we have been in a prolonged negative phase of the NAO going right way back to the spring. But we probably have more ensemble members that are keeping the NAO slightly positive actually. So we may be moving into a more positive phase with the NAO at the same time as we're moving into a more negative phase with the AO. And that's something we had a lot last winter, of course. Last winter we did regularly have blocking up over the North Pole, but the Atlantic was set up for westerlies, and what we finished up with was a very bizarre sort of combination of a blocking area of high pressure over the Arctic, but also high pressure through southern Europe and generally mild sort of dry conditions really a lot of the time last winter. Not saying we're going to go into that pattern this winter, of course, but at the moment it looks like the AO is trending negative, but at the same time the NAO could be moving into a rather more positive phase. We'll keep an eye on it anyway, see how it progresses over the next few days and weeks. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. So 500 millibars is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream, and red orange extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. Now you can see the reason for that plunge in the Arctic oscillation, and it's all of this sort of orange and red that we have here sitting over the top of the Arctic. So lots of high pressure blocking things out from the North Pole down towards Greenland and then extending back into the North Atlantic. At the same time, we've got a deep trough of low pressure across western parts of Europe, from the UK down through France into Spain and Portugal. There's also a deep trough over on the eastern side of America. So a real trough ridge type pattern with another ridge over towards the western side of America. So that leads us doing something a little bit like that with the flow and with the jet stream doing something a little bit like that. So a proper blocking trough ridge type pattern. What it means for us is that we're at risk of pulling in quite cold air from the east or from the northeast, but unsettled too, with low pressure across much of Western Europe, and that does include the UK, and that low pressure could bring quite a lot of heavy rain with it. GFS is very similar. Again, we have all of this red up here over Greenland and then extending back in towards the North Pole. So again, extensive blocking areas of high pressure over the Arctic. Two deep troughs of low pressure on either side of the Atlantic, one on the eastern side of the States and one on our side of the Atlantic across much of Western Europe. Not quite so much of a trough ridge pattern, but it does mean that we are still on the cold side of the jet, even with this doing something like that with the flow and with jet stream. And around this trough of low pressure, we could well start to pull in some quite cold air, either from the north or from the northeast perhaps. So both models, as we move up towards the middle of November, signalling cool, potentially very cool or even quite cold temperatures, and also you would have thought unsettled still with further showers, long spells of rain. And of course, in a cool unsettled pattern in the middle of November, that does herald the chance of some wintry conditions, particularly in the north and over high ground. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Look at Grimsby today. This is another suggested location for this section of video. If you'd like to have your local town or city featured within the videos, then please let us know through the comments at Gazlovitz or email gazlovitz@gmail.com. We're happy to feature your local town or city within this section of the video. We can't go down to village level at the moment, but certainly we can feature your local town or city. So the red line is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Grimsby, and we're starting off close to average today, but a bit of a drop in the temperature is on the way by the middle of the week, becoming quite cold. And as we go through the rest of this week, generally staying below average, really, up to the middle of November, which is this period just here, and then on into the second half of the month. Still looking quite cool, although by the very end of the ensemble, we do have a lot of scatter, actually. We've got these members down here that are really cold. We've got these ones up here that are much milder. So a big amount of scatter within the ensembles by the end of the graph, which takes into second half of November, but certainly reliably within the next sort of week to 10 days, it is looking really quite cool and still unsettled. So we are having a slightly drier episode at the moment, but as the week progresses, it's going to get more unsettled. Got plenty of rainfall spikes coming through by the end of the week into the weekend, and even lasting into next week. Expect more rain, and with cool temperatures as well, a pretty sort of dismal feel, I think, as we're moving up towards the middle part of November, is likely cold and wet conditions. Temperature anomalies from the 4th to the 12th of November below average, so it's going to be a cooler than average week coming up for the UK, for Ireland. Scandinavia looking very cold. Some parts of Norway having temperature anomalies going down to 10 degrees below average. Much of Western Europe actually looks quite cool. In the east and the southeast Europe, much warmer there, particularly around the Black Sea. Over towards the Balkans, we see much milder than average temperatures in that southeast corner, but the north and west definitely looks a lot cooler or even colder. Precipitation anomalies from the 4th to the 12th of November above average, away from northern parts of Scotland. So we continue with this pattern that we've been in through October, started in late September. We continue with this pattern of cool or cold and wet conditions, above average rainfall, and generally slightly below average temperatures. No change really today. So that's how the GFS is looking for Thursday. Low pressure is coming in off the Atlantic on Thursday. That's going to be bringing quite a bit of rain with it. There could be snow on the northern side of that low pressure over high ground across Scotland. By Friday, that low is clearing away, and we're going to a rather drier down Friday. Then in comes the next lows for the weekend. They're going to bring more weather fronts and bouts of rain for Saturday and for Sunday. Then this looks really unsettled for the start of next week. It's a week away, but the minimum central pressure is better going down to around 965 millibars again. So very deep area of low pressure, bringing heavy rain and potentially gale force winds some parts of the country. Again, it's a bit further south than you would normally expect in a typical Atlantic driven pattern. The black line is the jet stream. You see we are actually on the cold side of the jet stream with that, and so the low pressure is it's a bit further south than where you normally expect it to be in a typical Atlantic driven pattern. Means that for Scotland we are actually bringing in easterly winds, so there will still be a potential for some sleet or snow over high ground of Scotland with that unseasonably deep area of low pressure. Then the low moves away into the North Sea by next Tuesday. That starts to turn the wind into the north and the northeast, so by the time we get through to the middle of next week we are looking really quite cold actually. Winds are in from the northeast. Low pressure is to our east. High pressure is to the west of us. And looks very chilly indeed there. Probably with wintry showers in northern and northeastern parts of the country. That's how things look at day 10, which is Thursday the 14th of November. Still looking quite cold with winds in from the north to northeast. And probably wintry showers across the northern parts of the country in particular. In the more extended range with this GFS, we then start to have a go at building up some high pressure over Scandinavia. So that's trying to back the wind into the east. And in fact, by the time we get through to the 18th of November, we have actually got an easterly wind there coming in across the UK. The air is originating from kind of like the Baltic Sea, so it's not going to be particularly warm. I don't think the upper air temperatures are that cold, but certainly it would pack quite a chill that easterly, and maybe a chance of wintry showers in eastern parts of the country with that. That's as far as we can get with the GFS today, which is to Wednesday the 20th of November. We'll go rather slack by that point. Certainly looks chilly though. I think there's a very good chance this November could be shaping up to be another colder than average month, to be honest. So we'll wait and see how it develops, but I mean that's the sort of chart that will produce frost and fog, if nothing else, after that earlier outbreak of easterly winds. This is how the GM is looking. So again, unsettled on Thursday, low pressure in from the Atlantic, bringing quite a bit of rain for the end of the week. But low pressure clears away into the weekend. It's not long before the next low's coming in. This is midnight on Sunday. The next low bringing more bouts of rain off the Atlantic. Again, there will be a risk of hill snow up in the north. Into next week, not as unsettled, nowhere near actually as the GFS is showing through the early part of next week, but still low pressure is close to us, so at the very least it would remain cool and showery. And up to day 10, it looks like we've got a battle setting up then. So this is day 10, Thursday the 14th of November. We've got high pressure over Scandinavia, low pressure is out in the Atlantic. There will be weather fronts that are kind of stuck across the country, coming up against that block, sitting to the east. So further rain up to day 10, probably quite cool temperatures. And if this low pressure was to slide in that sort of direction, it could open the door then to easterly winds from the Scandinavian high. As I said in the video on Saturday, the charts at the moment are very untypical for the time of the year. So at this point of the year, sort of early to mid-November, you normally expect strong westerlies to southwesterlies and a milder sort of variety of Atlantic-driven weather. These are very untypical and quite unusual charts to this point of the year, and we're just going to wait and see how this all evolves as we go further on through the month and head up to the beginning of the winter. But at this stage, things are looking really quite interesting, I think, from a synoptic pattern, not necessarily from a weather pattern, because away from high ground, I don't think there's going to be any snow around in the next week to 10 days, and there's going to be plenty of cold rain as well. So from a weather perspective, it's pretty dismal, but from a sort of synoptic perspective, it is quite interesting what we're seeing here, I think. This is how the ECM looks for Thursday. Again, it's unsettled, low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. That brings us some rain through the middle of the week. As that low pressure clears away to the southeast, we pull in cold winds from the north and turn a bit drier around Friday to Saturday, but not for long. In comes the next low over the weekend, which will bring further rain, possibly hill snow in the north. That is Monday, so at this point, low pressure rain across England and Wales, outbreaks of rain there. High pressure building in the Norwegian Sea, turning the winds into the east for northern parts of the country. And then moving up towards day 10, we pull in a real easterly wind. So this is Wednesday the 13th of November. High pressure is centering sort of around Iceland and over towards Scandinavia. Low pressure is across France and Germany. In between, we are bringing proper easterly winds. It's not that cold, actually, with the easterly, as the air is kind of originating from southeastern parts of Europe and then coming around the top of the low, or the bottom of the high, I suppose. And so it's not a particularly cold easterly, but in November, easterly winds are going to be quite raw, they're going to be cloudy, they'll bring lots of murk with them, and pretty nasty conditions, actually, especially on the eastern side of the country. Of course, in the south and southeast, still close to these areas of low pressure, more rain would be likely then. And that's how we look up towards day 10, still unsettled and cool winds coming in from the east or from the northeast. This is the precipitation forecast from that ECM run. Starting with today, we've got areas of showers, if not longer spells of rain across the country today. Overnight, we find the rain particularly affecting southeast Scotland to northeast England, and again around these southern coastal channel areas and the Irish Sea. Many inland areas are becoming dry tonight. Into tomorrow, showers drifting down the eastern side of the country, and quite a chilly east and northeasterly wind there. Otherwise, it's a drier day tomorrow with morning rain and sunshine. Could be a little bit of winteriness in the showers across Scotland tomorrow. That takes us into Wednesday, so we have a lot of dry weather actually through the course of Wednesday for central and eastern regions, but the next low is coming in from the Atlantic. That's bringing outbreaks of rain through much of Ireland, England and Wales by the end of Wednesday. Overnight Wednesday into Thursday, turning quite wet, a little bit of snow possible over the Pennines with that one as well. And then that's Thursday, so a band of rain gets stuck across northern England on Thursday. Again, could be some snow over the tops of the Pennines. On either side of that band of wet weather, it's drier, but still with a risk of showers. Finally, that gets out of the way by the time we go through into Friday. We have a rather drier day on Friday, but then Saturday in comes the next batch of wet weather, and this one turns more readily to snow across Scotland, possibly down into the far north of England. That could take snow even to low levels on Saturday across Scotland. So Scotland might get the first proper fall of snow, actually, even to quite lowish levels late Saturday and into the early hours Sunday. Elsewhere, just a band of heavy, cold rain across much of England and Wales. And then that gets a bit stuck on the eastern side of the country through Sunday, bringing a very cold, wet and miserable day to much of southern and eastern Britain from Sunday. And then moving into more extended range, still keeping showers, if not longer spells of rain, going. And notice much of this rain is piling in from the east rather unusually. So that tells us the rather bizarre sort of weather pattern that we're going into as we move up towards day 10, with areas of wet weather moving in from the east rather than moving in from the west. That's how we look as we get to day 10, which is the 14th of November. Again, plenty of rain still left across the country. It's cold rain as well, with wind in from the east or northeast. So nothing all that exciting happening from a weather perspective, just lots more rain to come. And because temperatures are going to be on the cold side, that's going to be pretty cold rain as well. Just a suggestion of snow, perhaps to lower levels late Saturday into Sunday across Scotland. That could well be one to watch. And then finally, CFS-V2, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first week period takes us from the 4th to the 10th of November. The coming week looking cold and unsettled. Low pressure over the UK and much of north and west Europe. We've got high pressure blocking over Greenland as well. So, and the Azores highs pulled out into the middle of the Atlantic. So it looks cold and wet and unsettled for the coming week. That's how we look in week 2, which is the 11th to the 17th of November. Low pressure still coming in off the Atlantic. Loads of high pressure to our north and also to our east. Eastern and southeast Europe remains mild or very mild, with winds coming in from the south. But for us in west of Europe, we're on the cold side of the jet stream, and we could be pulling in some quite cold winds from the north. But still unsettled with those troughs of low pressure remaining across the west of Europe. That's how we look in week 3, which is the 18th to the 24th of November. Again, it's a case of low pressure driving in from off the Atlantic, looking cool and unsettled in week 3. And no real change into week 4. This is the 25th of November to the 1st of December. The Azores high remains pulled out into the middle of the Atlantic, so that's not going to bring us anything particularly mild. We have low pressure over just the western country and another ridge across eastern Europe. So it's going to be a very mild month in the east and the southeast of Europe, I would have thought, with winds coming up from the south. In the north and the northwest of Europe, we're aligning the jet stream northwest to southeast, so it remains unsettled and it remains quite cool as well, I would have thought. This could easily be a colder than average November based on the patterns we're seeing at the moment. Temperature anomalies in the week ahead from the 4th to 10th of November. Colder than average. Notice many eastern and southeastern parts of Europe are looking quite mild. Very cold in the week ahead as well across much of North America. Interesting. So we've got it cold on both sides of the Atlantic this week. Then we go through to week 2, which is the 11th, 17th of November. That also has below average temperatures, really warm on this eastern, southeastern part of Europe. Still quite cold across eastern parts of America. That's week 3, and this one is looking a little bit colder than average again. for the UK and for Ireland. Week 4 does show a bit of a change. It starts to go milder than average for them. This is 25th November to the 1st of December. Temperatures just start to stage a little bit of a recovery. But that's 4 weeks away. It takes it until week 4 to be able to pull off any milder than average temperatures. And we know the CFS wants to have mild conditions all the time. So it takes it week 4. It takes it 4 weeks before it gets a temperature anywhere near above average. And finally, precipitation. So week 1 rainfall for the 4th to 10th of November is above average, a wet week coming up. Week 2 from the 11th to 17th of November, close to or a bit above average with rainfall then. Week 3, which is the 18th, 24th of November, that one is also a little bit wetter than average, and still wetter than average really into week 4, the 25th of November to 1st of December, comes out with above average rainfall again. So this is shaping up to be a very cool and unsettled November, if this is right. Of course, it follows on from a wet couple of months in September and October. I think it's quite likely now that we will have the wettest autumn since 2000, particularly for England and Wales. Not sure about Scotland, but I think for England and Wales, wettest autumn since 2000 is looking quite likely, and also pretty cool as well. This could be our first cold and average autumn since 2012, so it's certainly shaping up to be quite a cool, wet month with some really quite interesting synoptic weather patterns as high pressure blocks things out to the north, forces the jet stream southwards, and potentially brings in winds from the north and also from the east at times as well. More about all of this tomorrow, of course. We're going to have the second Christmas update coming up for you around 7 o'clock this evening. That'll be today's 4th and final video update. So that's just a bit of fun, bit of a laugh. Have a look at CFS, see what it's showing for Christmas. For tonight's second Christmas update. So come back from that then. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.